Hello and welcome to this course. I will be your instructor. My name is Kingsley Ijoma. I am a senior software developer with 15 years plus experience writing and coding in Ruby, Python, JavaScript, PHP, and so many other languages and frameworks. So many years ago, when I started learning how to code, I had a lifestyle I wanted, but I wasn't quite sure how to get there. So learning to code allowed me to have that transition. So when I make these videos for people such as yourself looking to have a new lifestyle, a more secure financial future and freedom. So if that's you, this course is definitely going to be one for you. So the primary reason I made this course, lots of students always ask me, what should I learn first? Should I learn React and then learn JavaScript? Which one comes first, the framework or the language? Okay, learning the language first, learning all the fundamentals of the language means that when you go into learning a framework, you have a deeper understanding of the language. Okay, so I've made this course to address all the questions that so many students have been asking me over the years. So we go one step at a time. This course is geared towards a complete beginner. So if you've never coded before, you have no idea what JavaScript is, you are welcome. We'll go through one step at a time. You'll learn all the basics in JavaScript. So when you get to building things using frameworks such as React or Vue.js, then you understand what you're doing and you feel comfortable doing it. So I designed this course with 80-20 rule. So essentially, when you have a study or a course you're trying to learn, 20% of that course is actually responsible for 80% of your understanding. Okay, so what I've done is take away any unnecessary aspect of this course and just focus on the core of what you're going to be learning. So if you ever need to reference anything, it's easy to get back onto the course and just go through to the lesson or to the chapter that you need to and get the information that you need from it. So this is not a course of 15-20 hours, which to be honest, most people will never finish. This is a course that you can actually start and you can finish. So if you've ever had any issues starting and finishing courses, then you shouldn't have that problem here. This course is straight to the point and everything is there so you can understand it, so you can start the course and you can actually finish the course. So I hope you have all the information you need to learn a really fantastic programming language, JavaScript. So with no further delay, I look forward to catching up with you in the course, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with your new skills. So I'll see you there. Hey, and welcome to the video. Before we get started, I want to make sure that we are working on the same level. So I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. Is an IDE, a text editor. This is where we write the code. But if you already have one that you're comfortable with, then you can go ahead and use that. But if you want to follow along, and I'll be using this. So to get this, go ahead and download this for your operating system. It's free to download and install. Okay, once you've installed it, it will look like this when you open it up. So now I'm going to show you a few configurations just so you can see the same things that I see whilst we're coding. So one of the first things we want to do is install command line something. Click on View and click on Command Palette, and then in here you can type install path. Okay, and then go ahead and click on this link here. Okay, so that will basically install something in your so I'll show you what it does. So if I go into this is a program called Terminal or Item 2 on your machine if you search for Terminal program. So from here I can now type code dot, and that will go ahead and open up VS Code. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of that in the future lessons, so make sure you have code installed. And then the second thing I want to do is install something called Prettier. So if we go into View go into extensions. On the left side, type prettier, and we want to look for, I already have it installed on my machine, so I'm just going to extend this. So you're looking for this one here. So prettier code formatter. Okay, so this will help us format our JavaScript code just the way we want it to be. All right, so go ahead and click on that and click on install for that particular one to have it installed. All right, so what we want to do now is configure prettier to do some things that we wanted to do. So click on code, go to preferences, click on settings, and then up here, search for settings. We're going to search for format on save. All right, so you want to check this here. Okay, so make sure it's ticked. All right, so this is going to format our code every time we save it. We're going to see this in action in the coming videos. All right, something else we want to search for is single quotes. Okay, so come over here and make sure that we select quote style to be single. Okay, so under JavaScript, we have a single as the quotes there. Okay, so this again is a preference issue. You can have double, but single is what I'll be using. And then we are also going to look at indentation. So with tab size, make sure that your tab size you're using 2. Okay, and then the theme, the color theme that I'm using at the moment is down here, is theme high contrast. So you can check it out and see which one you like. But I'm using this one here. All right. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we are going to begin writing and learning some JavaScript. So I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to this video. So in the last video, we set up all our VS Code so we can actually write some code. But before we begin writing some code, we need to make sure that we have a node. Okay, so we're writing JavaScript and JavaScript runs on the browser, but we want to be able to run JavaScript on our machine away from the browser, so we need to have Node installed. Now there are different ways of installing Node using Node version manager, and it could get really complex. So I'm going to opt out and go for the very easy way. Okay, so go ahead and visit node.js.org n English, then /download, and then go ahead and choose your operating system and install that from there. Okay, once that's installed, go back into your terminal. Okay, and we want to try and say node version. Okay, so this is the current version that I have at the point of making this video. Yours most likely will be different, and it's okay to be more higher than mine. All right, so this is the version that the latest at the point of doing this video. This is the current one, but it still might change. So I'm going to stick with the recommended version. Okay, Node also comes with something called Package Manager, so you can also check the version by running that, and that's what I have. And again, yours might be different, but that's okay. Okay, so that's all we need. So type clear to clear the screen, and in the next video, once you have everything running, we should be able to begin writing some JavaScript code and running them using the npm and node command. So I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. So in the last video, we installed Node, and we can have that Node installed on our machine. We could check the versions. So now we are going to start working on some projects, okay? Learning some concepts rather. So what I'm going to do is, I'm on my desktop, so make sure that you cd into your desktop from your terminal. Okay, so whilst you're in here, make a new directory, and we're going to call this JS course, okay? And then cd into JS course. Okay, so essentially we've created a folder on my desktop, and I've cd into that folder. And once we're in that folder, we've changed into that directory. I can now say code dot, all right, and that will open up that current directory that we have in VS Code. All right, so this is what we did in two videos ago in the setup phase of our IDE. So revise that if that doesn't work. Alternatively, all we've definitely just done is open up JS course using VS Code. All right, so in here, I am going to create a file. I'll call this play.js. And the idea is we're just going to write code in here and we are going to run it. And each lesson, each video I make, I will basically delete all that information and do something new. But for you, make sure you keep a track of what you're doing so you can revise in the future. Okay, so we're going to learn about variables. Okay, so we use variables a lot in programming. This is very boring early stages stuff, but we need to have that strong foundation. So this is how variable works. So I start with this keyword var, and then I can put name, and then I could put my name in there like so. I need to spell my name correctly. So there we go. Okay, so once we have this, we can then say, hey, print what we have in our variable. So we say console.log, and then we'll put name in there like so. All right, so console.log, we have name. All right, so if I come down here, okay, so essentially I've just opened up the terminal, so you can click up here and you could do the same thing, okay, and that'll open up the terminal. So we could say node space play.js and run. Okay, so it essentially just prints whatever we have in that variable. So that's what a variable is. It holds information and then we can record that information later. All right, so if that doesn't work for you, make sure that you are in your folder. So you are in js-course when you run that command. All right, so this is how a variable works. But in JavaScript, there are different ways of doing the same thing. So I could use something else called let. So change that from var to let, and if we run it, it still works. We can also change to const, okay, for constant, and we can run it, it's still the same information. What is the difference? That's what we're about to learn. Okay, so we've seen that there are three different ways of doing this: var, let, const. There are subtle differences there. So let's quickly explore the difference. Okay, so the difference comes down to something in JavaScript called scope. Okay, scope rules. So imagine I have var, and I create a new variable in there. I will call this moo, and then down here I'll say, hey, log, show me what is in moo, right? Come over here, we run this, we can see it gives us that information moo. Okay, fine, that works. Now let's change this to let. Okay, and then we'll come down here and then we run it. We can see we have an error. We scroll up, we can see moo is not defined. So this is coming down to a concept called scope. Okay, so using let and putting let inside this curly bracket, we can see that we don't have access to that variable anymore. And yet when we use var, we can see that it works. Okay, so that's a big difference between var and let. So scope. And also if we have const, okay, for constant, if we run it, we can see we have exactly the same error, moo is not defined. So it seems that var is more lenient, okay, than const and let. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now the other thing is, although I define const, using small letters there, usually const will be capped, okay? So it's easier to differentiate it from other variables. So what exactly is a constant? So constants basically are variables that you cannot change once you've created them. So if you're const, I call this ID and I give this 45. All right, so come over here, I print that. You and I know this is going to print 45. Okay, so that works. Then I decide, all right, I want to change the ID so it is 5. That's what we're doing there. Now we try to run it. It says, nope, you cannot do that. Okay, you cannot change the value of a constant once it's defined. Right, so that's how that's a big difference between constant and variable and let. Okay, whereas let, like so, okay, usually we don't write it with caps like that. You could define it there, and then you could say, hey, change this to 4. So now when we come down here, use your up arrow key to rerun the last command. Sorry, I need to make sure we change this also down there. Run this, and we can see it's been changed. Okay, so our code always executes going down. Initially, it was ID was 45, and then we change ID to 4. Also, you can't redefine this like that. So if you run this, you can see we'll get an error. So an ID has already been defined. So this let, you use it once to say I'm defining it. So that's the same with var. So var works exactly the same as let. It allows you to redefine. Okay, so summary. So we have, make this slightly bigger, maybe not that big. We have var, we have let, and we have const. Okay, and we've basically identified that when it comes to scope. Okay, so when it comes to scope, then using var within the curly brackets is visible, but let and const will not work. And we've also identified that const, once is defined, cannot change. Okay, so that is what we want to basically remember when we look at var, let, and const. We are going to be doing this and using const, var, let, maybe not var a lot. I use let and const quite often, so you will have enough time to revise this. But this is what variables are. They are containers that hold information. So in this case, we have a variable that is going to hold my name. So, and we're going to learn more about this. So that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video, and we are going to explore a data structure called array in JavaScript. So I'll see you there. Hello and welcome to this video. In the last video, we learned about variables. Today, we are going to learn about arrays. So an array so here we have an array is a special variable. So, but the main difference being that it can hold more than one value. Okay, so that's one way to remember what an array is. So let's have a look at how to create an array. So to help us speed things up, I'm just going to paste this from memory. So we create a variable called names. Okay, and in that name we have this square brackets, and within it we have single quotations or double quotations. Basically means we'll have an array of names, okay, strings. So this is Ryan, Eric, Stephen, and Laura. So these are all items that now exist in a variable called names. Okay, so that's how we create an array. Okay, once it's created, we want to retrieve information from that. So we can reference that name, and then we can, for example, put one like this. Okay, but of course we want to print this. So if say console.log. Okay, we do that, and then we terminate. All right, so basically here we're saying, hey, print out name square bracket 1. So you might imagine that this might print Ryan, but actually this is going to print, let's run this. So say node, and it was play, right? There we go. My bad. So that should be names, plural. So that gives us Eric. So as it happens, arrays in JavaScript as well as in other languages begins with a 0, because 0 is a number. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the first item in an array is always going to be a 0. So that's, if we change this to 0, and then we run this, we can see it gives us Ryan. Okay, so 0, 1, 2 is Stephen. So if I change this to 2, and then we run this, we can see it gives us Stephen. Okay, etc., etc. So this is how we retrieve information from an array. And again, this is just an introductory aspect. We're going to use this in a more complex situations further down the line. All right, so once we have that, we can also change values and add things into an array. So let's say we have names. Okay, we can say we want to add something into it. I'll just stick with single. So this is what we've done, and then we can say console.log names. Okay, let me go ahead and comment this out. So commenting out is command and / will basically comment it out. You and I can read it, but our computer program will not run it. Okay, so we run this, we can see Janet has been added to our names array. So this is how we add things into arrays. You can also delete things from arrays as well. But to change a value, let's comment this out. I can maybe say names. Remember we said 1. Okay, remember what 1 does. 1 is 0, 1, so Eric. So we could maybe change Eric to Janet, like that. Okay, so now when we print out names, we can see Eric has changed to Janet. Okay, so that's how we basically change things. We target the index and then we add the value into it. Okay, brilliant. So let's comment that out, and then finally we have our delete. Okay, so this is again very simple. We say delete, we'll give a name, and we'll give it something that we want to delete. Okay, so you can probably guess what this would delete, right? So we say console.log names. Okay, so we're deleting something and then we're printing out what's left. So this is targeting the index 0. Let's have a look. We'll run it. So this index has indeed been deleted, and then we have Eric, Stephen, and Laura. Okay. All right, but if you notice, if we did names.length, okay, which gives us how many items we have, it still gives us 4. So we delete stuff, we delete, but it still remains there. A better way to completely delete an item from an array is to use, so we say name, we say splice, and then we give it the index that we want to delete, the first index, and then how many items from the index we want to get rid of. We just want to get rid of that one, the one. Okay, so that's it. So this is going to find the index, which is 0, 1, and how many are we getting rid of? We're only getting rid of 1, and that's all we're going to do. So now we can run this. We can see we have only 3 items left, and if we did dot length at the end of that, we can see we have 3. Okay, so that is a more efficient way of deleting an item as opposed to that, but I wanted to show you that this actually does exist as well. Okay, so this is the very kind of basic level of, you know, an array. It holds multiple items, and there's this square brackets, and you can add things in there. You can also have numbers, you can have different items in there. We're going to explore this in detail. Okay, you can retrieve values using the index. So index always begins from a 0 and the count's going up. Okay, you can change things by targeting the index as we did, like this, and then you can add items in there. Okay, so right now we kind of, the number is not a lot, so we can count out the index, but when we start doing something a bit more complex, we'll see how to iterate over these and automatically detect what the index is. All right, okay, so I would like you to go over to, let's go over to the website, Mozilla's developer website, and the link is below this video. So go ahead and check out the documentation on array and see how it works. You should be able to read this and it makes sense to you, and just play around with it and see the different things that you can do with it, as opposed to me kind of replicating everything in the documentation. All right, so that is what I want to cover with you here. In the next video, we're going to learn about conditionals. This is where things begin to come to life, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. So in this video, we're going to learn about conditionals. Okay, so conditionals is one of those concepts that are used in programming. Without it, it would just can't write any single thing. Okay, so just to show you an example of a structure of a conditional statement, so I'm going to comment this out. So this condition here is basically saying, if a particular condition is met, then do this. Else, if it's not met, then do this. So this is exactly what conditionals are. And we use this a lot in coding. For example, if I say if, let's say if 1 is less than 3 or less than 4, then we can do something here. We could say console.log. We say yes, for example. Okay, so we terminate that. We copy this here, and we paste this here, and we can say no. So this is how conditionals work. Okay, so this condition here is true, therefore this will get printed. So let's have a look. So we say node, we run this, we can see yes. Okay, and of course if we do something like if 10 is less than this, then of course we will see that gets no. Okay, so this is a concept of conditionals. This is how it all works together. Okay, so let's combine conditionals with variables. Okay, so let's say, let me go ahead and get rid of this. Let's say we have time. Okay, so we'll give it 7, and we could say if time is less than 12, then we could say console, go ahead and log good morning, right? Makes sense? Yep. Then we could also say else if time is, I wish, so less than sign, if time is less than 17, all right, then we can say console.log something like good day, all right, and then finally, if none of those actually happen, then we can say console.log good evening. Okay, something like this. So this is an example of conditionals in action. Okay, so we'll begin by setting a variable time to 7. Then we'll check if time is less than 12, which basically operating in a 24-hour clock, for example. So if 7 is less than 12, that's exactly what we're saying. Then we could say good morning. Else if 7 is less than 17, you say good afternoon, and then finally good evening if none of this is met. All right, so to check that out, we can say node play, and we can say good morning because 7 is less than 12. Then again we can push this up to say 20. Okay, so we run this, we can say good evening. All right, so that's how conditionals work. But there's a lot of sometimes you have to actually think about what you're putting in. So for example, if I change this so it says less than, let's say 17, and I put this and change it so less than 12, then you can guess what's going to happen, right? Okay, let's go ahead and run this. So that gives us good evening, but let's put a small number in there. Okay, let's say 6. All right, so we'll run that. So this will basically always give us a good morning because we have the bigger number over there. So even if I change this and says less than, let's say 12, okay, we're not really worried about what's going on inside. So if we wanted to, we can move this here and take this, okay, and put this there. Okay, so if it's less than 17, let's just for the sake of it say good day, and then if it's less than 12, say good morning. So when we run this, you can see it says good day, right? And you might be wondering, why is this running when we have less than 12? Why isn't it saying good morning? Well, the order that we put things actually matter, because you have to remember we are executing going downwards. Okay, so the top one is going to execute first, and because 6 is less than 12 at 17, this will always work. This will always kick in. Okay, the only time it's not going to kick in is if we go up to maybe 20, then that doesn't come into the equation anymore. Then when we run that, then it goes over there. Okay, so when you're planning your conditionals, you have to make sure that you put the numbers, the smaller one at the top, so you can use that logic. Okay, so this is how conditionals work. All right. So what I want you to take away is that conditionals is using if, and you can keep chaining if, else if, and then finally you can use the else block. Okay, so this is conditionals, and we're going to be using lots of conditionals in the coming lectures. All right, so to learn more about conditionals, we are going to head over to this link, which is below the video, and your assignment is to just read through and see if you can understand the code, which I'm sure you will, and to learn a few things that I haven't mentioned. So this here is an example of comparison, which we are going to touch on in the next video, but it's a good idea for you to have a look ahead of time. Okay, so that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next video. Alright, so welcome back to this video. Well, so far we've been learning some basic things, and I'm sure you might be wondering where's all this going. I just want you to trust and just keep going ahead. This is very easy at the moment, and I want that foundation to be very strong, but at some point we're going to start putting it all together. So our priority at the moment is for you to be able to look at code and understand it. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on comparisons. Okay, so this is another very important subject. So if I had something like this, okay, so this is something that we are probably all used to. So we can run this and we can see it returns a boolean, so true or false. So 1 is less than 3, and that will give us that. Okay, all right, so I'm going to change this. So let's do try something else. So we could say 4 equals 4. So now I have a different thing that you might not be familiar with. So this is basically checking if this is equal to that. That's what it's checking. Okay, so when we run that, we can see 4 is indeed equal to 4. So if I did this, change this to 3, and then save and then run, and you can see that's not 3 is not equal to 4. So this is not how you check if something is equal to. Okay, it's very important that you understand that. So running this will give you an error. Double equal sign is how you compare. Okay, so this is not equal to 4. But there's also, so if I put this back, or if I actually wrap this in quotations and I put 4 like that, so this is a string and this is a number, all right? And yet, when we compare, we can see it's true. How can this be equal to this? Okay, so in JavaScript, you can use 3 equal signs to check for a strict compare. So now, when we compare this, you can see it is false. So it's a good idea to stick with a triple equals when you want to be strict about the comparison. Okay, but of course, if we had quotations around this here, and then we run it, we can see this is equal to this. So it's true. Okay, just wanted to point that out. All right. Okay, so we want to check for not equal to. Could be, for example, 2 not equals to 2. You can see this is a strict check. Is 2 not equal to 2? What do you think that will give? When we run it, it's false, right? So 2 is indeed equal to 2, so this will give us a false. So this is using the exclamation or a bang is a way of checking for a negation, a not. Okay, so a not equal to. One that we should all be used to would be something like this. Okay, so we're checking if 4 is greater than or equal to 8. So run this, we can see that's actually not true. All right, so if I did this, for example, what do you think that will give us? True, because equal to. So we're checking for 2 things, if it's greater than or if it's equal to. So this is another comparison that we are going to see in the future. Okay, then some that you might not be very used to will be this. Okay, true and true. So this operand here, and, is checking that whatever's on the left side and on the right side have to be true for the overall answer to be true. So in this case, we have true, okay? And then if we had false and true, well, that's not going to work. It's false, right? Because both of them have to be true in order for the answer to be true. Okay, if one is false, then it's not going to work. Another one, the opposite of the and, I don't know if it's opposite, but the alternative would be or. So this is how you do that, okay? So or. So if either of this is true, then the response would be true. So if I run this, you can see that gives us true. So the only time this would be false would be if we have two false. Okay? So we use this a lot in code. You might want to check if out of 20 students, is one of them off sick, or something like that, and you want to return true or false. So this is something that you should be used to. Okay, so something else, we can do that. Okay, so this basically reads as not true. If something is not true, then therefore it is false, not true. Okay, or you can see not false. So if it's not false, then it is true. Okay, so remember, concept is we are trying to identify, see these things and recognize them when we do see them in code, but don't feel overwhelmed if you don't remember every single thing. The idea is you are going to come across this over and over again. So this is introductory to it. Right, so with that done, I am going to quickly test you. Okay, so let me paste this in here. Let's format this a bit better. All right, so we're combining a few elements together. All right, so you can see the and is there. So we're checking if num1 is greater than num2 and num1 is greater than num3. Okay, if that's the case, then this will get printed. Right, so we're reading these numbers there, and you can see this is being used. So if this is greater than this, so these two have to be true before this would be printed. So this is a typical example of using the double and we're checking to see how our if statements, which we did previously in conditionals, how everything comes together. All right, so what do you think would be printed out here? Feel free to pause the video and then answer it. So I'm going to run this, node play. There we go. So num3 is bigger than 1 and 2. Okay, so we get this here running. Okay, so that is the conditionals in action alongside comparison. So to further read below this video, you'll find this link. So check it out here. You can see some of the things that we've already done with the double equals, and we have the strict equivalent over there. We have the not equal signs, greater than, less than, etc. So this is a good example of that being used here. If age is less than 18, then we want to print something out on the screen. So spend some time on here, have a quick look at the logical operators, and have a look at the comparison operators. Okay, so that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. Okay, so we are making progress. In this video, we are going to learn about incrementing and decrementing numbers. Okay, so it's a very weird looking symbol. So let's see what it looks like. So imagine we had something like this. Okay, so we've seen this before. We create a variable called I and we assign 5 to it. Okay, simple enough. If I then said I++ like that, let's say I have it 3 times. If we did console.log I, okay, what do you think will be printed? Okay, so let's have a look. We have 8. All right, so I++ is a way of incrementing a value. Okay, so we're taking whatever value it has in there and we're adding to it. All right, so this is, if we had this, for example, and we run this, this will give us 6 because we are simply adding to it. So this is a very, this is something that whenever you see this, you know is acting on an existing value and is incrementing, is basically adding a value onto it. Okay, right. There's also the reverse, minus minus. We'll look at the I and it will take away 1 from it. We are going to use this quite a lot. Okay, so in coming projects, when we start building things, we're going to see this being used. Okay, so once you see that, you can recognize exactly what's going on. Is minus minus is decreasing and plus plus is increasing. There's also a concept of postfix and prefix. So if I take this out and console.log, we'll wrap this here like so. All right, so this is actually valid, right? So if I run this, it gives me 5, right? You might be wondering, well, why hasn't it given me the minus? We're saying I minus minus, shouldn't it give us 4? Well, there is also this. Okay, so when we put the same double dash before the I, okay, so we have a prefix. So if I run this, it gives us a 4. So this is basically saying, go ahead and deduct 1 and show us that immediately. Okay, so that's what that's doing. So the same thing happens with plus plus, right? So we have this. When we run this, it gives us 6. So it immediately adds and gives us the response right there. Okay, so if I did a plus plus over here and run it, it gives us 5. Okay, but it's worth mentioning, if we run our console and put I down there, when we run, okay, even though this gives us 5, this is always updated to the correct value, which is 6. So this is something as work in progress, and this is the finished product. If for some reason we want to get that value straight away, then we could put a plus plus here. So in which case, right clear to clear the screen, run this, you can see now we have 6 and 6. So it's just a matter of, if you're impatient, you want to have that response straight away, then put plus plus before the I. If you want to increment and then use the variable, then just stick with this, because this here will always give you the incremented value, regardless of pre or post. So if I put this plus plus behind, like so, the last one would always give me the incremented value. Okay, so this is essentially how it works. And also remember, this I is just a variable name. I can change it to a J. Just remember to change this as well to a J and change this to a J. And then we should have everything working again, as usual. So the takeaway is any variable plus plus where we're dealing with a number, then that would increment that number by 1. Okay, and then a minus minus would decrement that number as well. Okay, so that's what we want to learn there. We can also say j plus equals 1. Okay, so here we're essentially just adding, this needs to be small letter. So if we went ahead and run that, we can see we'll get 6. So this is a longer way of saying plus plus. So we're saying whatever you have in j, plus equals 1. So increase it by 1. Okay. Final notes, we have this, then we have like that. Okay, so usually without like that should look better. Okay, so we have j plus equals 1 is a way of incrementing, j plus plus is a way of incrementing, and plus plus j is another way of incrementing. All right, so that is it for this video. In the next video, we are going to look at loops. Then we're going to see some of this as well being used in action. Okay, I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we are going to learn about loops. Okay, so loop basically is the reason why we code, is being able to tell a computer program to do something over and over and over again. So things that I wouldn't want to do and you wouldn't want to do, which we'll consider boring. So now in this video, we're going to learn a new structure, and we're going to combine some of the things that we've learned previously as well. So let's have a look at an example of a loop. Okay, and then let's break this down. Okay, so loop is written like this. It's a for, and then you have something there that's going to trigger our loop, and then we're going to print out something. Okay, so remember, all we're trying to do here is get used to looking at JavaScript code and understanding what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, so here we are saying we're defining a let variable. We know what this is now. Okay, we're setting this to 0, and then we're saying, as long as this I, which is currently 0, as long as it's less than 5, okay, this is very important, as long as it's less than 5, we want to go ahead and print that value. So you can imagine the first time this is going to print, we're looking to print 0. Then we have this I++, okay, so remember we learned about this in the previous video, increment. So this is basically going to increment this I. So it's going to go from 0, it's going to go to 1, okay? And then we're going to print that, and then it will increment it again. So it will basically keep incrementing. And luckily for us, we have this condition. As long as I is less than 5, this will carry on going. As soon as I basically is greater than 4 or equal to 5, then this will terminate. All right, so let's go ahead and run that code. We can see it prints from 0 to 4, and as long as it got above or equal to 5, then it stopped. Okay, so this is an example of a loop, and of course this is not very interesting. In future, we're going to use this to print something a bit more useful, but it's just allowing us to read the code and understand what's going on. Okay, so I am going to comment this out. Now let's look at a typical example is using a loop with an array. Okay, so this is most likely how we're going to be using it. Now in this here we have an array. Okay, again we know what an array is. In this case, an array of strings of food, right? Now we want to loop through this. Okay, so remember up here we had I less than 5, so we hard coded 5, but here we're using the arrays. Remember it has the property, okay, which in this case is length. Okay, so we're saying how many items are in here. So there are 4 of them. So we're basically checking for I, and I is less than length. Then we're going to I++. Okay, we're going to increment. But remember we're starting with 0. So if it's 4, so it means 0, 1, 2, 3. So less than 4 is 3. So that works perfectly for us. So here we're taking advantage of the index. Okay, so we understand what's going on here. But what's going on line 10? Okay, so in line 10, what we're now saying is, well, go ahead and log. You said this is a backtick, by the way. So if you use just a single quotation, it's not going to work. So make sure it's a backtick. So this is basically saying, okay, go ahead and print I love, and then we add this here. So we're saying food. Remember in array, we can access the value by putting the index in there. So we're saying food I. So if this is position 0, so food 0 will give us sandwich. Okay, and this is going to loop through and print it for every single thing there. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that code. And you can see I love sandwich, I love bread, fish, and steak. Okay, so that is what we're doing. So the only new thing that we have here is probably this backtick. So you might be wondering, why do we have the backtick? So this is a process of course, string interpolation. okay, if we had single quotes, okay, or double quotes like that, if we had this like so, okay, when we run this, let me run it again, you can see it prints I love dollar, curly brackets. It doesn't work, right? When we want, what we want to do is first go ahead and interpret this, convert that into something, okay, and then embed that into our string. So that process is called string interpolation, okay, and to do that we use backtick like that, and then we change the backtick, okay. By doing that, it will then convert this into the right value, okay, before putting it all together. Okay, so that's the new thing we're learning here, is that essentially. All right, so let's of course we always run our code just to make sure it's all working fine. Okay, so that's great. So I'm going to comment that out. So something else we can do is we can have a loop within a loop. I know this is gonna blow your mind, but again, we're taking it one step at a time. So here we have one loop. Okay, so I'm going to leave, so we have food up there, so don't comment that out. So we're looping through the food, okay, and then within that loop, we're looping again. So you see another loop, okay? So what do you need to take away from this? Well, the top loop will run once, and then the inner loop will run the whole way, okay? So this will wait, and then this will finish, and then it will move on to the next, and then the inner loop will run all over again. So the top loop has 4 things, okay? So the first time it will run sandwich, and then it will wait, and then it will finish the inner loop. The inner loop will begin j is 0, and then j will increment to 1, and j will increment to 2, and then j will increment to 3. And then that loop has finished. Then it will go back to the top, and it will run one more time, okay, and then we'll go back again to the inner loop and run all over again, okay? So when we run this, we can see what gets printed, right? So if I scroll to the top, we can see I love sandwich, I love sandwich. So I love sandwich with sandwich, I love sandwich with bread, I love sandwich with fish, I love sandwich with steak. Then it moves on to bread. I love bread with sandwich, I love bread with bread, I love bread with fish, etc. Okay, so it's an example of how you can put a loop within a loop. You can actually keep going in and in. I mean, it becomes really difficult to read, but it is possible to have 3-dimensional loops as well. Okay, so spend some time just to get this to kind of resonate with you, because it's something you're going to see, and also look at what we're doing here. So you see, as a food I, so I'm referencing the top one, and then food J, I'm referencing the inner loop. Okay, so you can see all this bread, that's the I. Okay, and then everything in front, sandwich, bread, fish, steak, that's the J. Okay, so this is what we want to learn, and just taking it one step at a time, be able to read and understand the code and progress further. Okay, so again, we're going to have a look at some examples. So come over here and read some of this for loop to understand how it works. All right, but go over this, but not to worry too much. We are going to be using this a lot in future coming projects, so we'll have enough time to practice them. All right, so that is it for this one. I will see you in the next lesson, where we're going to learn about a different type of loop called a while loop. Okay, so that's a really cool one as well. So I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. Okay, so in the previous video we learned about loops. Okay, we learned about the for loop, to be precise. In this video we're going to learn about a while loop. So it's still a way of looping, but it works slightly differently. So let's have a look. So this is the code. Again, up here we know what's going on. We have 2 variables. Okay, I is 1 and n is 5. Here is where we have our while loop. So here we're checking while I is less than or equal to n. Okay, so while I, which is 1, is less than 5, okay, we just want to go ahead and console log. So while will just keep running. So the cool thing about this, we don't need for I equals this and I plus plus. We're just saying while this condition is true, which it is, I is less than n. So therefore this condition is going to kick and start printing I. Now the interesting part is on line 7. Line 7, remember I plus plus, we're incrementing I. So initially I begins at 1, then I would increment to 2, and then I will increment to 3, and I will increment to 4, and at some point it will get to 5, okay, which is still valid because it's equal to 5. Once it gets to 6, then this is not going to work anymore, and then it will stop. Okay, so this is how a while loop works. So let's run this, and we can see it begins with 1, and it runs all the way to 5, okay, and then it stops. So this is a while loop in action. I'm going to comment this out, and let's have a look at something else called a do while. Okay, so basically it's quite similar. We have two variables, but we're saying do this while this is true. So the only difference here is we're kind of flipping it upside down. Okay, so while this condition is true, then we're printing stuff. So this will never print if this condition was never true. In this case, we're saying do this while this is true. Okay, so that means that this will execute at least once. At least once it will execute. Okay, so again, I is this one and n is 5. Okay, so if we clear this and we run it, we can see that runs, right? So very similar to the other one, it prints from 1 going all the way to 5. Okay, so that's perfect. The only difference, like I pointed out, let's see. So we're checking while I is less than or equal to n. What if we made I to be greater than n? Okay, so we do that, and then we run it. You see, it prints 10. So it says, okay, I'm going to print 10. Oh, by the way, I can't do it anymore because the condition is false. So if you have something that you need to run at least once, then you want to use a do while loop for that. All right, so that is while. So I'm going to comment this out. Remember, it's command and /, and that would comment the code out. Okay, but there's also a situation where we can run a while loop in an infinite. So you have to be very careful. So let's say I said while true, okay, which is always going to be true. Console.log hello. Okay, so what do you think will happen? This is a very crazy code. So we're saying while true. Well, true is true. So this code will just run forever. Okay, so you might not notice it, but it's actually running. Okay, it will keep running until I run out of memory on my machine. So I'm going to cancel that by holding the control key and pressing on C. Okay, so it's very important that you know how to terminate that. So hold your control key down and then press on C as many times as you need to terminate that. So it's very important when we write a loop, we make sure, a while loop, we make sure that we have a way of terminating that loop. Okay, so in this case, it will terminate when this condition is met, etc. All right, so that is a second type of loop, which is a while loop. Okay, so for you, I have left out a few things just so you can discover those on your own. For example, there's a break, so you can use a break to stop. So here we're checking, this is the original while, as long as I is less than 6, but within the loop we can say if I is 3. Okay, so if 3 is equal to 3, then break. Basically just stop the while loop right there. Okay, so go ahead and read this documentation, because I want you to get used to reading documentation and just taking what you've learned and going one step further. Okay, so in the next video, we are going to look at a switch statement, okay, which is another way of controlling the flow of our program. It's a very exciting way of doing it. So I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to this video. Right, so in this video we are going to look at switch statement. Okay, all right, so I'll give you an example code of switch. Okay, so let's run through this because it's a completely new syntax. All right, so when we define a constant variable, so something that we are good at the moment, then we write this switch, and this is how it works. So a switch begins up there and it ends on line 12. And we're saying, so whatever input we get at the moment, it has name. So if this input is name, all right, we want to log console.log Kingsley. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. And then we check if this input is subject, then we want to console log software engineering. And then by default, if it doesn't match name or subject, we basically just console log no option given. Okay, so once we log here, we use this break statement to basically say, okay, that's it, we're done, don't carry on, don't do anything else. So this is a switch statement. Literally, we add a value in there and we're switching for a different case, either name or subject. So right now we have name and we expect Kingsley to be printed. So let's run this, and it worked. So there we go. All right, so we can change this by adding subject in there. Make sure you save your work, and then we run it, and you see that works. Okay, and in a situation where I basically don't have anything I send in, it says no options given, or if I send in an option that doesn't exist, then it says no option given. Okay, so this is a switch statement. Again, this is something that we use. Again, this is a very simple exercise. We're using console.log, but you can imagine we can have an actual logic that says if name was given, then go ahead and grant them access to do something, etc. All right, so that's switch statements, and that's how it works. All right, so let's learn something new. Let's say console.log. We say new dates, like so. Okay. We're kind of moving into something called classes and objects, but it's okay. I just wanted to show you something. So let's run this. So this gives us the date and time. So this is the current date and current time for today, right? Then I can say dot get day, like that. Okay. And when we run this, it gives me 4. All right, so this is going to count Sunday is 0, Monday is 1, Tuesday. Okay, so you can guess today is a Thursday, so that's when I'm recording this video. Okay, so with this, imagine we can feed this into a switch statement. Okay, and then check if it's 4, you can print Thursday or something along those lines. All right, let's do that. So I'm going to, rather than spend too long typing, I'm going to just paste this up here. So we're switching. So remember date. So this is going to give us 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, depending on what day of the week it is. Then we can see if it's 0, then we basically take this and we put it into day. Or alternatively, just to save me the time, I can just go all the way down, and by the way, I'm just holding the Alt key down and then selecting all of this. So then I can delete all that and just put console.log, and then we can do the same over here. So hold your Alt key down, and just be careful to click outside of the quotation. Okay, and then we have Friday, we have Saturday, and just want to put a closing bracket. All right, so there we go. So if it's 0, print Sunday. If it's 1, print Monday, etc. Okay, so this date is going to give us 4 because today is a Thursday. So let's see if that works. Yay, there we go, prints Thursday. So you should try that whatever day of the week you're watching this, that should print out the correct week for you. So this is a switch statement. And again, I want you to, I think from the previous video, at some point below, you will see an example of a switch statement. Okay, very similar to what we've done. All right, so that is it for switch statements. In the next video, we are going to look at objects. So objects are pretty exciting stuff in JavaScript. It's something that we cannot do without, and I look forward to learning that with you or teaching that to you in the next video. So I'll see you there. Hello and welcome to this video. So in this video we are going to look at objects. Okay, so we've seen an array. An object is like an array, but a lot more useful in a different way, I suppose. So let me show you what it looks like. So we have curly brackets, and we can have name, let's say Jane, and then we say last name, and then we have age, let's say I don't know, 34. Okay, so this is an example of an object, right? So we can actually see that this makes sense, as opposed to having an array where we literally just have Jane, and then we have Taylor, and then we have the age. All right, so this tells me that this is name, this is last name, this is age. So it's easy for me to follow, it's easy for me to make sense of that. All right, so this is what an object looks like. Again, we can put that into a variable. All right, so we save that. So now we can reference this as student, right? Now, this is something that we are going to play with a lot when we start building projects. Okay, so how do we retrieve values from an object? So again, we have the student, so we could say name. Okay, so I'm kind of typing backwards. Yeah, so imagine we said console.log, right? Log that. So that basically is saying, hey, I've got an object, give me the name. So it looks really familiar, right? So if we run this, it gives me Jane. So it reminds you of an array where we use the index, okay? But we had to kind of remember if it's 0, if it's 1, if it's 2, etc. But with an object, okay, we just have to remember what the name is, or the name of the property on the left side, right? So if it's last name, so if I put last name there, and then we run it, it gives us Taylor. So it's a lot easier to manipulate and to use. All right, so how do we actually play with this? How do we use this? Well, imagine we want to change some information. So I'm going to comment this out here. So we say student name, and then say, hey, I want to change the name to Boomi. Okay, so there we go. So again, I want to wrap this in console.log just so we can print it out and see what happens. Actually, if we put this on one line, and then we say console.log student, like so. Okay, so in this line, I'm targeting the name, which is Jane, and I'm actually changing it to Boomi. Okay, so when we run this, we can see name Boomi, last name Taylor, age 34. So this is how we can change the value. Again, it's very similar to an array, but we're not dealing with an index. We're dealing with the actual name of that object. So how do we add a new value? Okay, so I'm going to comment this out so the name remains as Boomi. So we can say student, like so. Let's say subject and size. Okay, so you might be wondering, hey Kingsley, where'd you get subject from? So subject does not exist in here. So I've literally just invented a new name. Okay, so let's see what this does for us. So if I said console.log and we put student in there, and then we run this. See, we have subject. So this is how you add a new item into our object. You can, there's a few other ways, but we'll just focus on the very basics. So you basically just put the name like that, and then you put a value into it. So this is something that you're going to see a lot of in the code that we're going to write together, in other people's code, so it's good to know what is going on. So if the name exists, we update. If it doesn't exist, we create a new one. All right, so I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to comment booming out. All right, so to delete a property, so we can say delete. We say student. Let's say subject. I want to delete subject. Okay, I'm going to put subject back up there. All right. Then we say console.log student. All right. So when we run this, we expect that student will be deleted. So if I run this initially, there's no student there. If I comment out this delete and then we run it, we can see subject is there. So by deleting this, we have to give it the name of our object. Then we give it the name of the actual record we want to get rid of. Okay, so remember, if I put this back up and I run this, subject is deleted. All right. Okay, so finally, there's also, this is very small record here, just 3 items in there, plus the dynamically added one subject. It could be long, and also this could be something that we import into this file. So someone else wrote that code, we don't actually have access to it. We can also decide to check. So this is known as a key, and this is the value. We could check to see if a key exists. Okay, so let's see how that works, right? So I'm going to, let's start by commenting this. Comment this out, just so it doesn't get in the way. So we could say student.has own property. Okay, so I'm checking for subject. Okay, so we're checking, does student have a property called subject? Console.log, so let's log out the response of this, like so. Okay, so remember I commented out subject over there. So subject does, subject is there, so true, it does exist. So let's go ahead and comment subject out, and then let's run this, subject is false. So this is how you can inspect an object, just to see what the properties are. Okay, right. Yeah, so that's the basic of an object. This is an object, it has curly brackets and everything else inside it, so it's a more convenient way of playing around with data. Okay, so as usual, I want you to go over to the link below this video and have a read about objects and properties and see some of the things, how you use them, some of the things that I did not mention, just so you can have a more rounded idea of how it works. But we are definitely going to be using a lot of it in the future. Okay, so that is it for this video. In the next video, we're going to look at the concept of null and undefined. What are they and how do they work? All right, so that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome back. All right, so in this video, we are going to talk about null, undefined, and we're going to see what those are and how to check for them, and a special nullish operator that we are going to learn about. So null, what is it? So we have a variable, let's say name, like so. How do I basically say that this variable is empty? This is where null comes in. Okay, so we're basically saying I'm going to define a variable called name, but I'm not going to put anything in that variable. So if I left this like so, and we said console log name, okay, we just want to print it out. So if we do this, we can see it basically says it's undefined. Okay, so that is how we get to this section here. But what we could do is we can say, okay, this is null. So we know there's no information in there, so that gives us the null version there. A really good description for null and undefined are found on Stack Overflow, which is below this video if you want to click on it. Is like this. Okay, so this is a really funny but a very good description of null and undefined. So null is where we have a placeholder and we should have a toilet roll there. And then undefined is basically it doesn't exist whatsoever. It doesn't exist. So that's what we are looking at over there. All right, so when we have null, is a way of representing, okay, I've created a variable. At some point, I'm going to put something in it, but for now, is null. Okay, so that's what we have there. Okay, so undefined is exactly what we tried previously. So we have name. We just but name console.log. Name will be undefined in this case. So like so. Okay, so there we go. If we call this like that, we'll scroll up, we can see name is not defined. So in this case, it's a more, the error is quite, it throws an error in this example here. So imagine null to be, hey, I've defined a variable, but there's no content, there's no value in it just yet. And then undefined is when something should be there, but wasn't included. Another example of this could be an object. So let's say we create an object like so. We say greeting, hello world, the usual, right? And then over here we say object dot, and we call something that does not exist. Okay. So in this case, let's go ahead and run this. We can see we get the undefined. And that's, of course, this object has greeting. It does not exist. Okay. So if I change this to greeting, then when we run it, we can see it prints out something there. So in the case of an object, if we call a property that doesn't exist in this curly brackets, then that is clearly a property that was never defined. Okay, so those are the two differences there between null and undefined. Right, so let's have a look at, and sometimes in our code, we want to check if something is null or undefined. So to do that, we might say if, or we could then say amount is null or amount is undefined, you see? Okay. Then we want to log something on the screen, like I am null or undefined. Okay. There we go. So this is a valid way of testing, right? You remember the or. So we're checking it if amount is null or amount is undefined. If one of this is true, then this will be run. Okay, so let's go ahead, we'll run this. We could say I am null or undefined. If we change this to undefined and we run it, it says I am null or undefined. And if we change this to something like hello, it doesn't print out because both of these are true. Okay, so that's how we can check for null. All right, but there is also a really cool and short way of doing this. Let's say we have amount, okay, and we put that as null. We could basically say console log, we say amount, we have two question marks, and then here we could say I am null or undefined, just like that. So having these two question mark is a way of checking. So it's got a nullish operator. It's checking to see if this is indeed null or not. So when we run this, it gives us that I am null or undefined. So this is the one that's been printed. Remember, this is commented out. Okay, so if I change this to undefined, still the same thing. And if I change this to hello, there we go. Okay, so it's basically just prints out the hello, okay, or it prints out that. So if this is empty, it will print this. If it's not empty, it will print the amount. Okay, so this should really be a number. Okay, so in the future we're going to learn about TypeScript and we'll see how we could prevent that sort of mistake from happening. All right, so this is a very short way of doing that. So in this case, we can actually add an else, and then we can say console.log, and then we say the amount. Okay, so this is then equivalent to what we have below. So first we check if amount is empty. So let's say null, and then when we run this, it says I am null or undefined. If we put some amount in there, and then we run this, it will give us the amount. So this long way is exactly the same as having something this short and concise. Okay, so what to take away? We have this double question mark way of checking if something is null or undefined. So that's really cool. Null is basically used to indicate that a variable does exist, but it's has no value. Then undefined is trying to find something that we either forgot to define or doesn't exist. Okay, and then we have this nullish operator. Okay, so that is null and undefined. So that's it. So I will see you in the next video. We are going to learn about errors, which is very, very important in any programming language. So I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to talk about errors. Okay, errors are something that you are going to experience a lot of as a developer, especially as somebody who is learning to code. So let's have a look at some of those errors. Okay, so this is an array. We have two things in it, and we can check the length. So this basically tells us how many items we have inside it, right? So we can say console. We log this. Okay, so let's have a look. So when we print this, it tells us we have 2 items in there, right? And if we have 3 items in there, it tells us we have 3 items. That's great. So that's using this length. But what happens if I try to call this with something like that? Okay, so it's not a property. We're calling a property as a function, right? We have this bracket. Now let's run this. We can see we have an error. Okay, so this is basically called a type error. Is thrown. So it's saying length is not a function, right? So we can then go ahead and do it this way, and then it works. Okay, so that was an example of a type error. Okay, so we can comment this out. So that's one example there. And we also have a syntax error. So let's say console.log, and I put quotation mark, and I say hello, and I take this one out. Okay, save this. So this is clearly an error. You can see this quotation mark, there's no closing one there. And then when we run this, we can see a different type of error. This is a syntax error. Okay, so you begin to see how this works. So there's also an error called a reference error. So let's see. So if I set console .log, and I just basically type something that does not exist. Okay, so this is there's no variable or anything called does not exist. So I'm just typing that in there, and then we can see it comes up with reference error. Does not exist is not defined. Okay, there's no variable or anything called does not exist, and hence why we get a reference error. So all these are basically errors that will hint to us something is wrong, and then based on the error, we know how to fix it. So reading, understanding errors are very important. When we write code, we also have to throw errors. Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, so let's say we have a variable. Okay, and I put my name in there. Feel free to use your name. And then we say if type of, let's say name string. Okay, so we're checking if the variable name, if it's not a type of string. Okay, so if it's not with single quotations or double quotations, right? So we say throw new error. Something like that. Okay, so this is how we create our own errors. Okay, we say throw new error. Okay, and then let's say else. Let's use the backticks and just put my name is, and we'll put string interpolation, we'll put name there. Okay, so let me clear this out, run. Okay, so first we're checking, is name, whatever we put inside name, is it a string? Okay, is it not a string? If it's not a string, then throw this error. Else, go ahead and print it. So in this case, it is indeed a string, but let's change this to a number. Okay, now when we run this, we can see we basically have thrown our own error with this value in there. Okay, so that is an example of how we can throw our own errors within our own codes. Okay, but as you can imagine, this is very unpleasant, right? You know, I have to scroll the way up and I have to read. Okay, so this is the error message. It would be really nice if we can just show the user this error message. Okay, now that is a process of catching errors. Okay, so we need to catch this error and then we need to deal with it in a way that is easier to read. So I'm going to cut this out. Actually, I'm going to, yeah, that's fine. Cut that out, get rid of this for now. So in here, this is the syntax for catching errors. We say try something, okay, and then we say catch the error, all right. Then we can say console.log and we can say error.message, like that. Okay, so every error has a .message which we can use to review what the message was. So in here, I can paste this code, save it. All right, so now we're saying within the try, we need to make sure we have our name variable, for example. Okay, so for this to throw an error, we need to put a number instead. So any number will do. So what we're saying here is try this code. If at any point it throws an error, okay, then we want to catch that error, all right, and then we want to print a message from that error, which is basically this here. All right, so let's have a look, see how that works. There you go. So that is a caught error. Name must be a string. Name must be a string. Okay, so let's run that again. Name must be a string. Okay, there we go. So that's how you throw an error and that's how you catch an error. Okay, and so the same thing would work for anything really. So imagine this situation here where we do that. We can get rid of this, we can put that in here instead, like so. Okay, so there we go. Length is not a function, and that's a lot better than having to scroll up to figure out what's going on. So you can try any function, process, procedures in here, and then you can catch that as an error. And then each error will have a message. So try catch. Okay, so as usual, I would like you to go to the documentation and read up on error, look at other things that you can do with it. But most importantly, we are learning about try and catch. Okay, so that is it for this video. I will see you in the next video. We are going to talk about functions. All right, so I'll see you there. Hello and welcome to this video. Okay, so in this video we are going to start writing functions. So we're slowly getting to that point of making bigger leaps. Alright, so this is what we've been doing recently, right? Something like this. I think by now you can actually read and understand this, right? So we have a score, we have name. So of course we need to have those two as variables. So let's say we have name as John and we have score as 50, right? So we're checking if the score is greater than 80, then we want to print that. Else, if it's greater than 55, we want to print that, and then anything else we want to print that. So this is the sort of stuff that we've been doing. Okay, and we can run this and we can see try again, and as usual, if we make this 88, so it's above 80, and we'll print this, we can see, wow, John, you are a genius, it gets printed out. Okay, so that's fine. Now what happens if I want to run this for someone else? Let's say we want to run this for Diana, like that. Okay, so that's great. But what if I want to run this for 2 or 3 people, and I want to see 3 results at the same time? You know, so that is really hard. So we're going to have to copy all this and then do that, and that is just very wrong in so many different ways. So this is where functions come in. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out into my memory, and then we could say function grade. We'll give it a name, right? Like grade essay, and it needs 2 things. It needs name and it needs score. Now this is a function. Okay, so we can take the code and we can paste it in there. All right. So now we're wrapped it in a function. So think of a function as we do a variable, but it can contain logic within it. Okay, so we've created a function called this is supposed to be grade essay. Okay, and it takes name and it takes score. All right, so this is the name and that's the score that we're going to feed into it. All right, so we can get rid of this from here, and then to call this function, we can now say console.log. We say grade essay, and we want to give it a name. So let's say for me, and then let's say 90, like that. Okay, we'll terminate. So that's a way of doing it. So these are placeholders. It's almost like a promise. Whenever you call me grade essay, I'm going to look out for a name that you're going to give to me. So that name is Kingsley, and I'm going to look out for a score. This is 90. So that name, Kingsley, will go into name here, and then it will be used here. The score will go into here, and it will be used there. Okay, so this is how it works. So every place where you see score, imagine 90 going through there. So it says 90 greater than 80. Yes, it is. And then let's go ahead and print this on the screen. All right, so let's do this, and then let's run it. Okay, so you see how that works, right? Cool. All right, so because we already have console.log in there, that's why we're seeing this undefined. So typically, functions have a return statement. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this and say return, like so. Get rid of that. Do the same here. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Get rid of this, and then say return. So you have to make sure that the backtick remains there. Okay, so make sure there's no brackets or anything. So returning a string. Okay, so now when we run this, it will just console log without the undefined. All right, so this is how we write functions. You are going to see functions everywhere. So it's really important that we understand it. Okay, now we can do something like this, and I can say Diana, and I can say maybe 70, and we can have someone else, Peter, and we can say 50, and there we go. So we are reusing the same logic, and each time we are passing in different arguments. So these are called arguments. Okay, this is name, this is score. So we're giving Kingsley 90, Diana 70, Peter 50. Each time it goes in here and it runs a different part of the code depending on the logic inside it. All right, so this is a function in action. Okay, and we looked at the return statement. So I'm going to write something very small. So let's say we have a function called sum it takes a and b as arguments. So within it, we can say a plus b. Okay, there we go. And if I said return here, okay, when clear this and then we run it, you see, so the return statement is really, really important in functions, because I just returned on line 17, it doesn't know what to print onto the screen. Okay, so if I got rid of this return and I run it, nothing gets printed on the screen. So a function does not return things implicitly. You kind of have to say, hey, I want you to return this. Okay, so if I run this, I made a mistake. So I should have console.log, and then we need to call the function. Otherwise, it's not going to work, is it? There we go. So we have that. Okay, so let's go ahead and repeat that again. So return like so. Okay, so nothing is returned, so just undefined because there was nothing there. And if we then go ahead and put a return like so, then it returns the sum of 1 plus 4, which in this case is 5. Okay, and if I had another return somewhere and I said, I don't know, so just any string in there, that is what gets returned. So you have to understand, if you have two returns, it will return the first one and ignore the second one. Okay, so we have functions. Functions need a return statement. All right, so with that said, there is also a self-invoking return statement. So this is really cool. So we can say, write an anonymous function, okay, like so. And then within it, we have our curly brackets, okay. I can bring this down, and then out here, I'll put that, okay. So, and then within here, we can say console.log. I could just say I can run myself, something like this, right? There we go. Okay, just scroll up, make sure there's nothing else there. So over here, I can run this, and that would immediately run without us having to do anything. Okay, so this is a self kind of evoking function. Okay, so these are functions. We're going to be looking at these functions in more detail. There are different types of functions. There are arrow functions. We're going to look at those in coming concepts. Okay, as usual, go over to this documentation, which is a link below this video on CodeHands, and have a look at functions, see some of the concepts that I have not mentioned, because I want you to do those for yourself. Okay, so that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. Okay, so in the last video we talked about functions. It helped us group logic together and made it reusable. Right, in this video we're going to take that concept one step further, and we're going to talk about classes. So classes works like this. So we're going to create a class called vehicle. Okay, so this is a class called vehicle. Classes allow us to group. You see those, we wrote one function, but we can group functions together. We can add variables, and we can put it all as one thing. So imagine we have a class called vehicle. Every time somebody wants to use this vehicle, they have to give us a brand and a model. So we use something called a constructor. We say we need a brand, we need a model. Okay, and then we take that and we're going to save it inside a variable called brand and another variable called model. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So step one, we've created a concept called vehicle class. Okay, we said you can use this vehicle, but every time you use it, you're going to give us two things. Okay, a brand and a model. We take those and we save them in this variable. Very strange, there's no var, there's no let. So this is an instance variable. So it's a special type of variable that we create within classes. Right, then we say, okay, we want two functions, but again, this function is going to look a little bit different. So we're going to call this fuel up, Okay, so you can see it doesn't have the function keyword like we usually have like that. Okay, so when we are within a class, we can just write a function like this, but we refer to this as a method as opposed to a function. Okay, so then we can say, hey, return something. So in this case, we can say your model. Anything like that. Okay, so that's what we're basically printing onto the screen. We can group, we could have more than one method. We could have another method called drive, and then we'll return something else. Now driving. Okay, so that's all we have. Okay, so we have a class called vehicle. Every time we use the class, we have to construct it, say these are the two things that we need. So within it we have fuel up and drive methods. Okay, and you can see from fuel up we can make a reference to the model. Okay, and then we can make a reference again to the model from down here. Right, so now to use this, we create an instance of a class. Okay, so we can say new vehicle like so, bracket open and close. We'll give it Honda, will be our brand, and we can give a ridge line. Okay, like so. So now we have created a new instance of vehicle. Okay, so we can save this into a variable like so. Okay, so I know this is kind of like a big leap, especially if you've never seen a class before, but this will get easier, I promise. So now that we have a new variable which contains an instance of vehicle, we can now say console.log, and we say something like vehicle1 fuel up. Okay, so this is a method, so we have to put the brackets open and close. Voila! So this is a class. We run it, it gives us your ridgelines gas tank is now full. All right, so you can see we made a new instance of vehicle, and we save it in here, and from there we can call that, and that information that we fed into the constructor is then used by these methods. So you can think of it this way: we have a class can contain methods. Those methods are methods that can relate to each other. They make sense together, like fueling up, drive makes sense together, right? And then constructor gives us everything that we need for these two methods to work. So this is what we are going to be doing in the future, creating lots of classes to do different things. So if you're creating an e-commerce site, you might have a class for the basket, you might have a class for the product, you have a class for the user, and they all have to have different methods inside them and different requirements for the constructor. Right. Okay, so again, we can call the drive, and we can see that works exactly as expected. Okay, so, and again, just like we saw when we were looking at functions, it's also possible to call this with something completely different. So if I make a duplicate of this, we can maybe have an Audi and a C4 Avant. Of course, we want to change this so it's vehicle 2. All right, and then we can do console log, and we can feed in vehicle 2 dot fuel up, blah blah, save that, and then change this one here to drive like that. Okay, when we run this, we can see your C4 Avant gas tank is now full, and your C4 Avant is now driving. What we're doing here is grouping the methods together so we can use it that way. All right, so as usual, this here would be the class. Okay, so come over here and have a read and just soak this in we are going to be using classes. I cannot explain to you people how much we're going to be using classes in the future. So just knowing classes would help. We're going to visit this in coming concepts just to see other things that we can do with classes, etc. All right, so that is it for this video. I will see you in the next video, and we are going to talk about inheritance. So we're taking classes to a next level. Okay, I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. So in the last video we talked about classes and we saw the benefits of them. This was what we made in the last video. Okay, so we have a vehicle class, it has a constructor, it has two methods. Now we're going to take our understanding one step further and learn about inheritance in the concept, in the scope of JavaScript. Okay, so you have a new request. So this vehicle class is all good. It caters for a conventional car that has a fuel tank. Okay, what if we want to cater for a car that is electric? What would you do? Because we don't have fuel up, for example. We have a new method there. So you might say, okay, that's fine. We could do that. I can come here. I can make a copy of that, and we can call this electric vehicle like that. We could change a few things. So where we have fuel up, we might have an additional one as well. Let's say we have charge in there. We can now say your model is now fully charged. Okay, so that works. So we have two methods, but you can see we are in a way we need to have drive as well, don't we? So we have this. So we're kind of duplicating a few things, right? So this is a very easy and simplistic example. So can you imagine drive could actually be a very complex method that does quite a few things. So that would mean in the future, if the way drive works, if the way it works changes, we have to come in here, we have to change it there, we have to come in here, we have to change it here. And if we had so many different types of vehicles, we have to go into every single class and make those changes. That's not very useful. So this is where inheritance comes in. And inheritance basically makes it possible for two classes to be, or more, a lot of classes to be linked together and share information through a parent class. So what we do is we extend, we come over here, we say this extends vehicle. Okay, and just by doing that, if I come over here and I remove everything that we have, okay, in electric vehicle, we can come down here. I can say vehicle. We'll create a new electric vehicle like that. It says Tesla Model 3, like so. Okay, so you can, looking at electric vehicle is completely empty. It has no methods in it. It has no constructor, nothing. Okay, so we say, let's say console.log vehicle, and we can say fuel up. Okay, just for the sake of it. All right, we run this, and there you go. Your Model 3's gas tank is now full. It's coming from here. So we did not define any methods in electric vehicle, and it's inheriting everything through this extends. So this makes it possible for us to create child classes that use methods inherited. Okay, so our vehicle has a constructor, but our electric doesn't have a constructor. What if we have additional things like battery? So if I want to put a battery life, what would I do? Would I come over here and say this is the battery? No, that doesn't make sense, because this vehicle will be inherited by many different types of vehicles. So what we do, how that is handled is within electric, we can come over here and we can create a constructor like so. And then in this constructor, we can say brand model. So this has to be the same as the one we have above. So it has to mirror this one here in a way. So, and then from here, we call super, and we have to feed into super brand and model. So what we're saying essentially is every time we create a new electric vehicle, we also want you to go and create the vehicle. So we're feeding in everything vehicle needs to be created with. Okay, so that's what the super is doing, and then we can create any additional variables that we need. So in this case, battery size is only specific to electric vehicle. All right. So in here we can have charge, and that would return whatever I wanted to return. So in this case, we could say make a reference to the brand is now fully charged. So this is the only thing that's new on electric vehicle. Okay, so if we run this, your Model 3 tank is now fully still there, and we also now have charge, right? So when we run this, your Tesla is now fully charged. So this is available to electric vehicle, but not available to the vehicle, because we're extending and we're basically not duplicating things like drive. And in the case of fuel up, we might not want to be able to call fuel up, okay, because we don't have a gas tank, right? So in that case, we could override any parent methods that we don't want to have, right? So here, for example, we could return something that basically says, I forgot, $. So this model does not have a fuel tank, something like that, right? Okay, so now when we run, we can see Tesla is now fully charged, Model 3 does not have a fuel tank, and that is the process there. So what have we just done? We have created a class. The class inherits from vehicle, and we can make use of the methods in vehicle like drive. Okay, so we don't have to recreate drive, and we can also add our own class specific methods as well as variables. So down here we could take battery size and print it out. So battery size is not a method, so we take that off. So when we run this, it will give us the battery size. Okay, so this is inheritance in action. For you, the idea is to just learn what a class is, how to extend, what a constructor does, what this key super keyword is doing is basically calling this other constructor up there. Okay, so for now, follow the link below this video on CodeHans and just read about inheritance, see some things that I have left out on purpose just to get you to think a bit beyond the box, but we are going to be writing a few of this when we begin to write projects. So know about them as a concept, and we're going to visit them again. And yeah, so that is it for this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about some ternary operators and what are they, how does it work. So that's it. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to talk about ternary operator. So it's a different way of writing an if statement, right? So if we write an if statement in the old way, we can say check if age is equal to or greater than 21. If it is, we can say console.log, something like this there. Okay. If it's not, we can say console.log juice. Okay, so this is an if statement as we are used to, right? If we come down here, we can okay, so we can run this, and we can see it runs with this first clause because 24 is greater than 21. And if we come over here and we change this to I don't know, 16, okay, anything less than 21, and we run this, we can see the juice bit work. Okay, so we are used to this, we're comfortable with this. So ternary operator is slightly different. Let's see what that looks like. So here we can say check if age is greater than or equal to 21. This is a ternary operator, so we just put one question mark. Okay, in this case we are going to print beer. This is how you put a colon, which is to say else. Okay, we say console.log. In this case, we print juice. That's it. So whatever we have over here would always give us a true or false. And if it's true, this first part of the left side of the colon would run. So this is for true, and this is for false. Okay, so that's how it works. So again, just like before, if we were to change this to something lower, we'll run that. We can see, well, that'll be the wrong one, wouldn't it? So let's change this completely to back to 21, and then we can change this to, yeah, so 16 is fine. So 16 will be something smaller. So we run juice, this is the else, and then we can put it back again to 25, for example. Okay, and that runs. So this is a ternary operator. Is just literally having this single question mark will give you that. Okay, so that's it for this one, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to talk about closure. So I'll see you there. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video we are going to talk about closure. Okay, so what is closure and how does it work? So basically, closure is the process of tracking how we expose variables that we use when we write code. Okay, so I will give you an example. So imagine we have a variable called age, okay, and we have a function called double age. Okay, this function does not take any parameters, and pretty much all it does is return age multiplied by 2. All right, so where is age coming from? So this is an example of a global scope. Okay, so we have called this global scope. Okay, so we are referencing a variable that's written outside of this particular function, and we can print it. So if I said console.log double age, okay, and we then go ahead and run this, we can see it did actually work. So in this case, we are using a variable defined outside of a function inside the function. So we know that this works. So this is an example of a global scope. All right, so let's have a look at a local scope. Okay, so let's going to change this. So this is local scope. What is it and how does it work? So let's have another variable called name. Okay, so Tony, that is going to be our variable. All right, so we are going to have a function. Basically, all this we do is print name. In here, I'm going to create another variable called name. Okay, so that's the name there, and we want to return name. Okay, so if we said console.log name, what do you imagine would be printed here? All right, so we have name defined up here, and then here we are changing the name from Tony to Susan, and then we are returning that name, and we want to log the name. So let's go ahead and run this. Play JS. Sorry, that was not JS. So there we go. So this gives us Tony. So how does that work? So over here we had Tony, but we changed it. We definitely changed it to Susan there, and we return Susan, and then we try to log. So in this case, anything we define inside a function remains local to that function. So we cannot access this variable outside of the function. Okay, so closure is showing you, teaching you how our variables are used and where they're exposed and where they're not exposed. And it's very important to know this because when you're working on something, you might be expecting the results to be Tony, or sorry, to be Susan, and you'll be surprised. So this is showing us that any variable defined inside cannot be accessed from outside. Okay. All right, so let's come back up here. So there's another one which is not very talked about, but it's still a scope. So it's called function scope. Okay, so let's have a function. We'll call this URL builder. Okay, and this is going to take in a variable. We'll call this scheme, and then within this we're going to return another function, okay, which will be domain, and then within this we're going to return another function which will take in path. All right, then finally this path is going to return with backticks. Okay, we're going to bring back scheme, followed by that, and then domain, followed by slash, and then the path. Okay, so let's run through this. So we begin by having a function called builder, and then we have anonymous functions, a function without a name inside it, and this is going to require domain and another function and path. So as you can see, it's possible to have access the variable from above and above and above, all the way from inside the function. Okay, so I've just okay, yeah, so that's, I thought it was a typo, but it's not. So that's how this, we're checking to see if we can within a function access another function's variable above it. So this is a very JavaScript thing where you can have a function within a function within a function. Okay, so let's see console.log. We call our URL builder. We give it HTTPS. By the way, this is how you call inner. So you have another bracket open and close, godowns.com, another bracket and close, and we'll just basically say courses, something like that. Okay, so we call this outer function, this one here. We pass in HTTPS, and then we put another bracket outside. We'll give it codehans, which would then go into this path. We'll go into the domain, and then we'll have the courses, which will go into the path. All right, so we check this, and it works. So we have HTTPS godowns.com/courses, and that worked. So this tells us that when we have nested functions, you have access to all the parent function scope, okay, variable scope. So that is closure. So we had the global scope, we had the local scope, and then we had the function scope. Right, so as usual, we have to check out scope in the documentation. So if we go to closure, so this is where you can read a little bit more about closure and just get used to it. So one of the very most important things is just knowing that if you define a variable inside a function, you cannot use that or call that or reference that outside of the function. Okay, but there is such a thing as a global variable, which means you can define a variable outside of a function and use it within the function. Okay, so that is it for this video. I will see you in the next video, and we are going to talk about arrow functions. Okay, so I'll see you there. Hello and welcome to this video. So in this video we're going to talk about arrow functions, okay, in JavaScript. Now this is a traditional function, or a function as you and I know them, right? So you write a function, this is the name of the function, it takes 2 arguments, and then it returns something, okay? And we can run this and we can see some response, okay? So it adds the 2 numbers together and it gives us the total of that. All right, so an arrow function is also writing, basically we are writing functions, but we are using a different syntax. That's all it is. So let's see how that works. So we'll begin. We basically have a variable instead of writing a function, and we completely skip writing the keyword function, and we just basically say, okay, we need 2 arguments, num1 and num2. Okay, then the arrow comes in. Okay, so equals and greater than sign, then curly brackets open and close. So this is the signature of an arrow function. Then within it, we are back to what we know. So we say num1 plus num2. Okay, so this is the same as what we had up there. You can see we basically get rid of the function keyword, okay, and then we put the arrow function over there. All right, so that's the process of writing an arrow function. We're just keeping things very simple. At the moment, I just want you to learn that there is such a thing as an arrow function, and this is how to write it. There are differences between those, but for now, just think of them as you can use them interchangeably. So just as before, we can have a number there, or we can have a number there, and then this is going to add this number up for us. So we'll get that response there. So we have num1 and num2, and I haven't done that, have I? So I've just logged these 2 numbers. So we want to log add 10, 20, 30, maybe something like that. Okay, so it gives us exactly the same thing. Right, so there is also an implicit return. So as you can see from here, let me comment this out, come over here. We can also write all this in one line. So we can say const add num1, num2, and then we just give the arrow function. We say, okay, whatever we have in num1, add it to num2. Okay, so in this way we are using the we don't have to basically say return. Okay, so this is one of the major differences, of course, with the function. Function needs to have the return statement. In this case, we can do it without the return statement. So this will work exactly the same way. Okay, so we can test it out just to make sure. Console.log add, I will give it a number, I will give it another number. Okay, if there's no typos, then we should get that to work. So there we go. Okay, so this is an implicit return, all in one line. Okay, so let's go ahead and have, so we can have a single arrow as well. So let's see, const add. Imagine that we just had, let's say, want to calculate the square of a number. Okay, equals, we could say num arrow function num multiplied by num. Okay, so you can see what we've done there. So when we have a single argument, in this case just num. It's okay, we don't have to wrap it in brackets. It still works. You can wrap it in brackets as well, but I just wanted to show you that that was a possibility. So if we had that like so, that would also give us the right result. Okay. All right, so that is with single argument, in this case num. So you will see some people write something like this, or some people will also wrap that in brackets, and that should still work just fine. All right, so this is arrow function. Just know that it exists. We're going to read about some of it over here. So follow the link below the video and check this out. Okay, that's it for this video. And I will see you in the next video. We'll talk about array destructuring. So I'll see you there. Hello and welcome to this video. So we are going to look at a concept called array destructuring. Okay, so this is an example of an array. We've come across this before. Is often the case that whilst we're working on a project, we have to request data, maybe from a database. It will come in the form of an array, or from an external API. It will come in the form of an array. We might only be interested in some of the data, not all of it. So array destructuring makes that really easy for us. So let's assume that we are only interested in first, second, and third items in this array. Okay, and again, we can see the array right there, but you have to imagine that when we're writing this code in a project, we can't see the content of the array. It's coming from an external source. Okay, so let's say we're interested in just the first, second, and third item. Huh? So this is how you can destructure this array. Okay, so there we go. So we are essentially saying take all this array, all this content, and destructure it into first, second, and third. Okay, so now we can say console.log first. Okay, and when we run this, it just gives us the value of the first one. So that's the beauty of this, right? So we can literally have first, second, and third, and that will give us the content from first, second, and third. So that is what's meant by array destructuring. Okay, so if you hear that term or someone mentions array destructuring, you know what you're looking for. All right, or if you're working on a project and you can't quite remember, oh, I know there's a way of doing this, array destructuring, search that and you'll come across quite a few examples. Cool. Okay, so it's really quite straightforward, really. So let's have another look here. So over here we can see there's another thing called rest. We're going to have a look at that in the next video, but we can have a quick sneak peek in this case. So we can say give me the first, second, and third item, okay, from colors. So this is what we had previously. We can also then say with 3 dots, okay, so this is now saying, or I have access to everything else from there. So this is a pattern that we use a lot in React. You know, so you have components and you have to pass some kind of data into the component. So it might be 1 or 2 or 3 or many. So you can use this rest pattern. So down here we can say console.log rest. So you say rest without the 3 dots. So you can run this and it will give you the rest of them. Okay, so we have 3 for first, second, and third, and then the rest is yellow and brown. Okay, so that's what this is there for. Oh, and by the way, there's nothing special about that name rest. So this could be other as well. So you can then change this also to other. So as long as you have those 3 dots, that's what really matters. So that's called a rest. Okay, so it's a rest because it's on the left side of this equal sign. We are going to address this in the next few videos, or the next video actually. Okay, so let's go back. So this is a very quick one. Come over to the documentation and just read about the structuring. Okay, so this is a concept that you should know about for JavaScript. Cool. All right, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we are going to have a look at that REST operator just to understand it properly. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. So in the last video, we came across array destructuring using, we saw REST in action there as well. So in this video, we are going to cover REST. So if you remember, we had something like this, right? So we said that REST basically appears on the left side of the equal sign, and it has 3 dots. And what you call this doesn't really matter. It could be other, it could be the rest, it could be anything, but it needs to have the 3 dots. But the name is called REST, okay? Now, so you know, if we console log A, it would be 0, console log B, it would be 1. So in this video, we're just basically learning more about REST. REST is not unique to just arrays. So we're going to see REST being used in other places. So the other thing we need to know about REST is REST has to be the last item. Okay, so if, for example, we did something like this, okay, this is just not going to work. Okay, so if we said, let's save this into something, just call this nums, and we say console.log nums, okay, and then we try to run this, we'll get an error. REST element must be the last element. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. So this cannot work, so we have to do that. All right, and then it works. Right, so in this case I'm just printing nums, so it doesn't really matter. So changing this to A will print what we know A. Okay, so that's point number 1. Very important to know that. And then we also have, let's see how we can use REST in something other than an array. Okay, so we can use REST in an object. So imagine we have this. Okay, so this is an object where we have student, street, postal code, city, right? And we can assign this like so, equals, and on the left side we can put, we're extracting student, and then everything else we're going to refer to as address. Okay, so this is REST being used in the concept of an object. So remember objects, curly brackets, and then within that we have items, key and value. So here what we're saying essentially is taking this object, okay, give me the key, okay, student. So basically this student here. So if we said console.log student, okay, let's have a look. So it gives us Adam Peters. So it basically pulled this out. All right. So it's important in this case that in a situation here that this student has to match a key that exists here. So if we put this back like it was previously, okay, you will notice up here we define anything we want. A, B, it could have been any, it could be first, second, whatever we want. But in a case, so this is in the situation of an array. So in the case of an object, what we put here has to match a key that we're trying to pull out. Okay, so that's the big difference there. Okay, all right. So we put student there, and that gave us the student. So we can also say console.log, and we'll give it address. Okay. And that will give us the rest of the address. All right. So this is how we use REST in this situation. All right, so finally, we are going to have a look at using REST as a parameter, an argument for a function. So let's see, we have a function called greet. We're going to give it a REST for name, and we're going to say, okay, let's make this names. So names, for each of those names as name singular. Okay, so we're going to give this an arrow function, console.log. We use backticks, and we can say hi name singular. Okay, so you can see what we've done. We've used the REST there. So this makes it possible to basically say greet. You could give it any number of names. Okay, and there you go. So you can literally pass in any names you want into the REST, and we can access those with a for each, which is a function, a method for a list. Okay, so if we run this, have a look. So my bad. So this should be either name or n. So let's do that. So there we go. So we get hi James, hi Collins, hi man. Okay, so there you go. So this is we've explored using REST in a list, using REST within an object, and using REST within a parameter name. All right. So as usual, head over to the documentation, read about REST, see some of the examples being used. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to explore something very similar to REST called spread. Okay, so I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. So in this video, we are going to learn about the spread operator. So imagine we have an array, okay, and this array is from 1 to 5. And then we want to use this array to complete another set of array. So this is how we use spread. So still with the 3 dots, but you can see it's on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so that is the only main difference really that you can see here is the fact that we're using this on the right side of the equal sign as opposed to on the left side. So we're using it to complete a set of structures. So that's that. So now when we try to say console.log 1 to 10, then that would give us the full set, go all the way from 1 to 10. So it's used for spreading additional content into an existing one. Okay. So again, just like previously, we can use, just like the previous video, we're not just limited to using it in a list, we can also use it within an object. So here we have an object called address. It has 2 properties, street and postal code. Here we have an address which has city, London, and we are taking this address and we are spreading it in here. Okay, so once again, when we run this, it will give us the full address. So this is the kind of main difference really between REST and spread. So just to reiterate, this is what REST looks like. Okay, so REST is on the left side of the equal sign and spread is on the right side of the equal sign. So REST is taking this information and just taking from it what you need, and spread is doing the opposite. Okay. All right, so this is how we can use spread within an object scenario. All right, so in another thing is the position doesn't matter in spread. So we can put this there, or we can put it there. Okay, it doesn't matter. That will still work. So that's the other difference. Okay, so that really is spread. We're going to use this quite a lot, so you get a chance to see being used in action. Okay, so as per usual, this is the documentation for spread. So do come here and have a read, and just to see again some of the things that how it's being used, some of the things that I haven't mentioned, so you can see fill in those gaps. Cool. All right, so that is it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to learn the concept of modules. So far, we've been writing everything in one file, play.js, and we've been running it using node play.js. Here, we're going to learn how to have multiple files, write a code in a different file, and use that code in play.js, for example. So that concept is one that's going to require export and import, and that is what a module essentially is. A reusable code that's written in a different file that we can then import and use. Okay, so to begin, we're going to create a new file. So let's call this hello.js just as an example. In here, I'm going to define a constant and a function. So the first will be a constant, and we're just going to save 3 into that constant. Then we're going to have a function. Okay, and this function is simply going to return hello world. Okay, that's what we have. Okay, so what we're trying to achieve is write this code and use it in a different file. Now to do that, we need to export the code that we've written. So in this case, we have ID, we want to export, and we want to export hello world. So that's how we do it. Okay, so you write your module, as we've done in this case. Then you want to export that module. Okay, so that's the next stage there. Right, so how do we run it? How do we call this? So we're going to play.js. Here we can then go ahead and import. Okay, so we use this bracket. We say we want to import ID and we want to import hello world, like so. Okay, so, and where are we importing that from? In quotations, this is going to come from hello. Okay, so hello.js. All right, so that's how we import that, right? Okay, so we can now say console.log. And we'll give it ID. All right, so first we'll write the code here, and then we can use that code here. So this is not going to work, and I will explain. So we run play.js. So this gives us cannot use import statement outside of a module. So when we create modules, modules are very special things. So it's not just a file with an export. We kind of need to tell Node we are now dealing with modules. So there are different ways. So for the easy way, I'm just going to rename this. So it's MJS. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say yes to that. So what that basically is going to do is update this. So it's hello.mjs. So we change the name to be a module of JavaScript. So now Node will know we are dealing with a module. And I'm also going to change this name here and use MJS as well. Okay, so with that done, we can call node play.mjs, and that gives us 3. So we are using a different file within this file. Okay, and of course, if we look at the method definition here, we could call hello world. So let's try that. Console. Console.log hello world. All right, so we'll come over here, we run this, and we need to make sure it's a function. So put that there. We run it and we can see hello world. Okay, so this is an example of a module. We create a module in a different file with all the logic we want. And again, we are going to use this a lot in coming projects. And then we can use that code in a different file, right? So to revise this, go over to the documentation and read about module, import and export. So you can see this is what we're going to be, how we are going to use it in the future. But yes, so that's it. So go ahead and just have a read and see how it works. There are some other things that we're going to look at in the future. You might see some codes might have export defaults, for example, like so, and we might be just exporting that as the default, or you might actually see code like this. Okay, so this is basically just exporting this function hello world as default, in which case when we come over here, we just need to say, for example, here import hello world. Okay, so as you can see from here, there's no curly brackets because that's the default export from this point, in which case we would not need that one there. So we're just exporting one thing and we can call this and it gives us the same response. So that they're just different ways of exporting things. You can export one function or you can export multiple things, but it's a better convention, in my opinion anyway, not to have the default, because that way we can just stick to one convention of knowing that you should use a curly bracket in places like this, for example. So that is just a preference thing for anyone to choose from. Okay, so when we don't use export default, we can use the curly brackets. When we do use export default, we don't have to use the curly brackets. Okay, so that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to learn two concepts. We're going to learn about synchronous or sync, and then we're going to learn about asynchronous or async. All right. So these are two concepts that really bring JavaScript into the limelight. Okay. So what are they? How do they work? And we're going to see this in the next 3 videos. We're actually going to be looking at this in more detail. Okay. So let's begin with sync. So basically, this all comes down to the process that the code is executed in, the order that's executed in. So let's have a look. So if we have something like console.log, and we basically just say log start, console.log, we'll log middle, okay, and we'll log end. So we have 3 things here. So behind the scenes, we know console.log is actually a function. We didn't write that function, but it's a function that exists within JavaScript. Okay, so when we run this, by the way, I have changed this back to play.js. In the previous video, we called this m.js. So remember to change it back. So if we come here and we run node and run play.js, okay, we can see the order in which it ran. So this is what we expected. This came first, this came second, and this came third. So we know that code is executed like that, okay, going down that way. So this is what we refer to as sync, okay? So that is, it basically goes in sync. This finishes, and then this finishes, and this finishes. So this is how, when we write functions, we expect it to be run in the order that we have stacked it, okay? So this is sync. Now, there's also situations where things basically will not go to plan. Okay, so that's where we basically come to async. Okay, so you can imagine if we have something like this and we say start, okay, then we are going to write a function in JavaScript which will set a delay. Okay, so let's say set timeout. We'll put an arrow function inside it like so, and then we basically say console console.log. So this is going to wait or take 2 seconds to execute, basically. So wait for 2 seconds before this is executed, right? And then inside here, we'll put a comma and we'll put 2000, okay, which will basically becomes 2 seconds. So what are we doing here? We have this, which is going to print out in less than a second. Now we have this, which is going to take 2 seconds to work. And then we're going to have something else here. So we have another console.log and we'll have end. So this is where the challenge comes in, and this is where async essentially kicks in. So we're saying run this and then wait 2 seconds, okay, before printing this. And then after that's printed, go ahead and run this here. So let's see what happens. Wait 2 seconds and then this comes. So this is not the desired result, okay? So this started well, and then all of a sudden, it was waiting for this to finish. It says, oh, I'm not going to keep waiting. I'm just going to move ahead. I'm going to run this. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to print this out. And that's exactly what's happened. So you can imagine we can write code where this information, the last bit of information, requires the information that's coming from this here. Okay, so this would be very problematic for our code. So we want a situation where we can actually wait for this to finish, all right? Then we can go ahead and use that information, okay? So how are we going to do that? In the few coming videos, we are going to look at this in detail, exploring something called callbacks, exploring something called promises, and async await. So these are concepts that we really do need to know before we move into building our projects. Okay, so now that we know what kind of problem we're trying to fix, I will send you over to come and have a look at the URL, which is below the video, just to learn about those concepts. Okay, so in the next video, we are going to go a bit deeper into sync and async and learn more about them. Okay, so I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to talk about callbacks. So callbacks. In the previous video, we kind of talked about async and sync, and we are now going to look at solving that problem. So this is what we had in the previous video, right? So we said that when we run this, we see it starts with start program, end program, then waiting for 2 seconds. What we want really is start program, wait for 2 seconds, and then end program. Now, because we introduced this 2 second wait in the middle, this basically was delayed, and this said, okay, I'm not going to wait for you, I'm going to run myself. So that's why we had start, end, before wait. Now we're going to explore using callbacks, okay, as a way of making this to run in the sequence that we really want it to. Okay, so let's start by creating functions around what we have. So I'm going to call this start like that. Okay, and then we're going to end like so. And then I'm going to create another function here. Let's call this middle. Okay, and we end middle right there. And then finally, we're going to have another function. We can call this end. Okay, and like so. Okay, so now if we have start, middle, end. Okay, when we run this, we should still have the same problem. Okay, so the first step into using callbacks is to have some kind of methods or functions that we can reference. Okay, so with that done, let's look into how we can solve it. So the beginning step really is when we come to this function here, we can say when we call this function, we are going to feed in into this function the the function that we wanted to call. So this becomes a callback. So for example, we said after logging onto the screen, there's a function we're going to send in to you. Call that function. Okay, so that's the beginning for what we're going to be doing. And then down here we can now say within this function, okay, you are expecting a function. So in here we are just going to call middle. Okay, so you see how that works. So now we know this is always going to run first anyway, because there's no time, so it's going to run instantaneously. And then this waits for 2 seconds. Then after this is run, then we want to run something else. Okay, so then we can go into middle, and we say, okay, middle, we are also going to have a callback, and then after you've logged to console, we want you to call that callback like that. Okay, now this is the last one here, end. So end doesn't really need to call anything because it's the last one, so we can leave that as it is. So now in here we can have an anonymous function like so, and then we say call end like that. Okay, so to reiterate, we have a function called start. We say to start, whenever we call you, we are going to feed in a callback. So this will be a function that we want you to run at some point. So in our case, we've said once we've logged something onto the screen, then we want to call that function. So in here we're saying start. Okay, after running start, this is that callback, middle. So we're feeding it in middle. Okay, and then finally within middle we do exactly the same thing. Okay, and we feed in end to middle. So we're kind of chaining it up. So you can see start, middle, end. Okay, so now when we run node, it has start, it waits for 2 seconds, and then it ends the program. So that is exactly what we wanted. So this is the concept of callbacks, is the fact that when you design this function here, start, you kind of predict that there's something I want to run at some point inside of start. So that's why we have this callback. So when we call callback, we can then feed in that method there. Okay, so but as you can see, this is looking a little bit crazy, and this is commonly referred to as the callback nightmare, callback hell, because what happens if we have another step after middle? We have another step, so then we keep going in and going in and going in and going in. So we have start, middle, maybe middle 2, middle 3, and it just keeps going in. So it's really difficult. And if we decide at some point to change something in one of the ones at the very top, maybe middle, then we have to, it can get really complicated and really wrong. Okay, so callback does solve the problem of, running things in the sequence that we want it to, but it doesn't make it very easy to update. We are going to look at promises in the next video, which kind of takes us to the next step into making this slightly neater. But for now, as usual, go into the documentation and read about callback, play about with it, see how it works, just to make it concrete, because it's a concept that you will encounter in people's codes. So is callback something that you should avoid? Not necessarily. If you have 2 levels like this, it's easy to read, maybe even 3 is fine, but when it begins to become quite nested, then you really want to avoid and use something different. Okay, so in the next video we are going to have a look at a concept called promises and see how that helps us make this a little bit tidier. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome. So in the last video we talked about callbacks, and this is what we have, and we confirmed that this actually does do what we wanted to do. So this is called first, this is called second, and this is called last, but we said that this is callback hell, and the reason being, if we had another callback, then we have to come in here and then we have to call another function, and then it just keeps going on and on and on. Okay, so this is not the cleanest way of doing things, right? So in this video, we are going to explore another way of doing it using promise. Okay, so the code that we've written so far is almost there. So let's see how we can do that. So we are going to return promises. So return new promise, like that. And then within this, promise can be resolve or reject. Okay, so that's where we start from. Okay, so we are going to take what we've written and paste it in here, like that. Right, so this is the new syntax for using a promise. So essentially, we are wrapping the code in a return statement. So we're returning a new promise, and promise usually has a resolve and a reject. So resolve means everything is gone fine. So in this case, we can say resolve, like that. Okay, wrap this in like so. So now we can get rid of this callback. Okay, and we can also get rid of this here as well. Okay, so that's how we create a new promise. So when we call start, it will return a promise, and resolve means everything went well. Reject is just in case something didn't go to plan. So you can imagine if we're expecting when you start to give a name, okay, we can then say if no name was given, then we want to reject, right, and say something in there, right? So that's what reject is there for. So I'm just going to get rid of this and just keep it simple. Okay, so let's leave it like this. Okay, so this is a promise, so we need to do the same here. So in here, we want to also take what we've done up there and return, like so. And then in here, we want a curly bracket and then indent everything in. So we are returning another promise here. Okay, so once again, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of the callback. So this middle is returning a promise. We need to resolve. So resolve is what we do when everything goes well. And then finally, we also have our situation here. So we are going to take what we have from line 10, and we want to put it in here, and then we want to close and indent inwards as well. And then finally, we want to resolve, like so. Okay, so that is the format of promises. So we wrap our code in promise. Okay, we return that promise, and then down here we do the same there, and then down here we do the same there. So now we have promises going throughout the code. So remember that if reject is basically there for when we want to throw an error. Okay. Okay, so down here, rather than have what we have here, okay, which is not the cleanest of ways of doing stuff, right? So what we are going to do is basically say start. Then there's a keyword called then, okay, call the middle one. After that, then we call end. So this is what it's going to look like. All right, so from here we can call node, and that will start program, wait 2 seconds, and then it ends program. So that's the process of using promises. So promises, we can also catch errors as well. So if there was an error at some point in the code, we can say catch and then error like so, and then we can say something like console.log error message. Okay, so it's still the same thing. So we could save it this way, so it's a bit cleaner. So you can see, comparing with this and that, so this is so much better. We can see the start there, then we do that, then we do that, and if any errors occurred above, we might want to catch that error and do something there. So let's run our code. It starts the program, it waits 2 seconds, and then it ends the program. So this is the concept of promises. Okay, so we can actually get rid of the bottom bit, and then we have it there. So this is a promise. So the only thing that you need to remember is that you write the return new promise, and then we have resolve and catch, and then we can then come down here and chain them up. So there is no nesting going on, which is easier to read and even easier to maintain. But we haven't actually ended yet. There's another way of doing this we're going to explore in the next video called async await. So async await is another way of actually getting this to be even better, because then we can get rid of this then keyword and have it look so much more natural. So ideally, it would be nice if we could just say start and middle and end. Okay, so that would be really cool if we just have something like this and have it work without having to put this then kind of thing going on. Okay, so that's where we'll be. That's what we're aiming for. All right, so that is it for this video. Go over to the link and have a read about promises just to see how it works. In the coming video, we are going to explore async await. All right, so that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to this video. So this is what we have so far. We've come from callbacks, promises, and now we are in async await. So let's so this is async await. So what is it, and how is that going to help us improve? So as it happens, async await uses promises, so we don't have to change very much in the code that we've written so far. In fact, this stays exactly the same, middle stays the same, the end stays the same. So the only thing that we really need to change is how we are calling them. Okay, so remember we said that ideally we want to get rid of this then. So we're still kind of chaining things here. So there's a slightly different syntax to use. So we start by saying async, and then in async we define a function, any function that I'm going to call this run, for example, right? And then inside of run, we're going to use the keyword await. So that's where the async await comes from. So we say, okay, I want to run the start first, and then await, and run whatever we had in the middle, and then await again, and then run end. Okay, so this is the closest we can get to. I know I did say ideally it would be nice to have just start, middle, and end, but this is quite close enough. So we get rid of .then, and then we feed in a function into then. Instead, we're just calling this on its own. So, but the key is that we have async await. So any function that we create that wraps, we need to have a function that wraps around our synchronous functions. So we have that async defined up there, and then we can go ahead and use await inside it. So now we can get rid of this, for example, and we can run. Okay, it's not going to run. Why? Because we have to call run, like so. now we can run node, starts program, wait for 2 seconds, and end program. So this is much neater than the way we had it previously. Okay, so of course we can also have this as a function that calls itself, right? So we could say async and just feed this into an anonymous function like so. We want to terminate this and then have this call itself like so. So just as we did previously. So this is a self-calling function, and we can run node and it will basically do exactly the same thing without having that keyword run. But you have to remember, we definitely need to have async. What happens if we don't have it? When we run it, we'll get await is only valid in async functions. So if you have this error message at any point in the future, all you have to do is put async in there. Also, just as we did the error catch, we can also wrap this in a try catch as we learned previously. So we can say try, okay, and then catch. So we can have the error like so, and then we can say something like console.log error message. Okay, and that's all in. So this is how you would check to see if any of these has something rejected. Okay, and if it did, then you can catch the error and do something with it. In this case, we're just logging it onto the screen. So if there are no typos, this should just run start, wait for 2 seconds, and end program. So that is it. That's as much as we need to know where async awaits are concerned. So remember, at the moment, we're just testing this out by writing very simple things that are wrapped with promise. When we start working on projects, what we do is make a request, and that request may be to an external service, and that might be to fetch some images or to fetch some data, and that could take some time that we don't know how long it will take. Therefore, we would make sure that what we're pulling down is bringing down the promise, and then we can use async await in that case. Okay, so that is it for this video. Definitely go into this documentation, read about async await. There's a few points that I haven't covered, but it's pretty straightforward. So that's it for this video. I will see you in the next video.